Hey, guys. Okay, guys, that was great. Thank you so much for coming, Wesley, Jeremiah, and Nayla. It's so good to have you here. And it's been a while since I've run into you. I told this story on the air, but Jeremiah, you went to school with my daughter in college, and she would come see you when you were called Wesley Jeremiah. She loved you guys and introduced you to me. If you could tell that story.
Yeah, well, I was going to school at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey, and your daughter Jessica was as well. And I remember my buddy won free tickets at another unnamed radio station we won't say now.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but he and I both worked there.
On the East Coast, and he said, do you want to come to this studio for this Electric Ladyland in New York City?
Yeah.
For tickets, and then you were hosting it. And then I think, somehow ran into Jessica. She came to the shows when me and Wes and this other guy were just sort of dogging it in New York City, playing these small shows where nobody was coming, and that's really cool that you heard us at that was about 10 years ago, I think.
We thought you could really help us too. We were like, we got to get this guy our demo. I don't know what the plan was. We're like, we just got to get this guy our demo.
And so when my daughter introduced you guys to me, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I've been so proud of you and watching, everything you've accomplished from that time. So she, sends her love, of course, and, she was, like she said, she would go to all the early shows, and I just thought that was so awesome. That's the kind of thing when you love music and music discovery, you go and you support not only the friends that you have, but artists that you love, Now, Wesley, you were working like 3 jobs at one time, right? When you were living in Brooklyn and... Yeah. What was that experience like? Because you, at some point, you guys said, all right, listen, I've had enough of this, because rents are high. It's, it's no different than San Francisco. All right, so, but when you guys decided, I want to know, what was the catalyst, the thing that made you both decide we're going to move to Denver?
Well, sometimes it's just a random, you hear something. So a friend of mine said, hey, we're moving to Denver, and this house we're looking at would fit both of you guys. You could have a practice space, and it would be half of what you're paying in this shady apartment in Bushwick at the time. And so I just started doing the math, and I was like, well, I'll have a lot more time for music and, working on my craft and touring. So we didn't really think about, is this a smart idea from like a go find ourselves in Denver? It was more like logistically we can probably be better musicians than we are in New York. I just remember bartending and meeting all these musicians who would say something like, I'm in like 6 projects right now. And I'm like, who's bankrolling you? I'm in like 1, and I can barely find enough time to get to our rehearsal studio. So it was just straight up, I got to go somewhere where I have more time for music.
Yeah, and that's great that it ended up working out that way. Let's go back to when the two of you first met. You were friends since you were kids, but it was a tragedy that really brought you guys together and made you want to make music, which I think it was cathartic. I mean, losing a best friend and a brother, and let's talk. Can you talk about that just a little bit? Do you mind?
Yeah, no. I think that kind of sums it up too beautifully. That sort of this tragedy happens, and then out of the ashes and smoke of that, we formed this band. He had died. My brother, tragically overdosed of drugs when he was 19. I was about 14. It was Wes's friend. It was my older brother, and I think starting this band with Wes 6 or 7 years later, I think it was sort of our church without the religion. It was this great place of solace. Everybody goes through stuff in their lives, and I think it was a great way to take any sort of pain or anxiety, whatever you're feeling in life, and put it back into music in a positive, healthy sort of way. And again, it sort of sums up the story too easily, but that's kind of the gist of it. Like for me and Wes, and then eventually finding Neela, and now this band that we call the Lumineers. It's sort of all stemmed from let's write, let's make art, let's make beautiful music, let's get high off our own music and see where this can take us. And that was pretty much the only goal. It wasn't, anything else really. It was just about art and music.
It was real. It was for all the right reasons, which I love. Neela, talk to me about when you met Wes and Jeremiah.
Well, I had never been in a band before, and I got a music ed degree, and I had graduated like probably 2 weeks before, and I was living with my parents and just perusing Craigslist for anything to get me out of the house. And they posted an ad for, these guys just moved from New Jersey and needed a cello player for their band. And yeah, it was not where I thought what I would be doing for a living.
Yeah. Guys, the White House. Let's talk about that too. obviously we know how Jorge, and the first album blew up. But what is the experience of going and doing the White House? What was that like? Tell us about how you ended up getting invited there.
Well, Obama really likes Stubborn Love, so that's what got us into the White House, I guess.
It's on his playlist, right?
Yeah.
It's on his playlist.
He walked in. He's like, "Who do we got here?" I'm like, "The Lumineers." Like, Lumineers. I love Lumineers. Comes in, starts shaking all of our hands. And then I said, "Oh, thanks for putting us on the playlist." He's like, "You deserve to be on the playlist." It's like he's just so casual about it, and we're all just losing our mind.
Yeah.
So he took a picture with us and made eye contact with each of us, and then we went out and played on the White House lawn right after that. Sort of in a blackout mode of thinking I just met the president and I got a photo.
That's great. No, that must have been amazing for you guys, right? I mean, so listen, I just wanted to, say how happy we are that you came to play for KFOG listeners today. And again, congratulations. And so good to see you two again, and great to meet you. I've seen you many times, but we haven't caught up in a long time. And I know all our KFOG listeners appreciate it as well. Let's hear it for the Lumineers. We'll do some more songs for you.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you.